Magazine, or Animadversions on the English Spelling, 1703. By G. W. Introduction. I first came across what is, as far as I know, the unique copy of Magazine by G. W. when working in the library formed by the late Sir Isaac Pitman. It is bound up as the last item in a volume which contains several 19th-century pamphlets on language and spelling, and also the first numbers of the periodical The Phonetic Friend. The volume was for a time in the possession of the Bath City Free Library, to which it was presented by Isaac Pitman. It must subsequently have been returned to him. I drew attention to the existence of Magazine in an article published in 1937. To the best of my knowledge, it had not been noticed in print before that, though it is of considerable interest in a number of respects. I am indebted to Sir Isaac Pitman and Sons Limited, London, for permission to reproduce the pamphlet herewith in the Augustan reprints. 1. 2. G. W. was a spelling reformer, one of the many writers who, from early Elizabethan times onwards, have been critical of traditional English orthography and have made proposals for improving it. Although nothing that could be called a spelling reform movement existed until the 19th century, there were earlier periods when the subject was much in the air, when a number of people were writing about it and reading and discussing each other's ideas. The publication of Magazine does not fall at one of these times. It comes, in fact, in the very middle of a recession of interest in spelling reform which lasted almost 100 years. From about 1650 to 1750 there were few critics of our orthography, and they were usually neither very strong in their criticisms nor radical in their proposals for amendment. G. W. is thus a somewhat isolated figure, and his scheme for reform would appear, in its details at least, to be fairly original. The greater part of the pamphlet is given over to expounding the illogicalities and inconsistencies of the established spelling, and here G. W.'s style of writing, which is colloquial, racy, and elusive, is effective enough. It is not so well suited, however, to orderly and clear exposition of his proposed amendment, unfortunately, since this is what is likely to be of most interest to us today, and numerous misprints increase the difficulties of grasping his proposals. Perhaps there was, or was to have been, a sequel which would have stated his reforms more systematically. That this may have been the case appears from the statement on page 25 that the alphabet is preparing, and from the mention on the last page of the ensuing battledore, i.e. battledore or hornbook. His remedy, briefly, is to replace digraphs by new symbols. More letters would do well in the alphabet, but fewer in most words. Page 25. And like John Hart before him, whose works perhaps he knew, and Bernard Shaw after, he draws attention to the economies to be gained from this. If fewer letters will serve the turn, 'twill save paper and ink, and 'tis strange if not labor too. Page 5. On page 32 is exhibited a complete alphabet. Of 34 symbols, it is not complete, for L has, apparently inadvertently, been omitted. Although there is no indication there of the value each symbol should have, that of most of them can be worked out, with some labor, from the rest of the pamphlet, though a few must probably remain mysteries. I have commented elsewhere on this scheme of reformed spelling. It appears to us today to be theoretically quite creditable, at least as far as the consonants are concerned. The traditional alphabet is enlarged by providing a separate symbol for the italicized sounds in each of the following words. Th and th and ch church j sh all mea s your wh and s-ing. These symbols are obtained partly by creating new ones, partly by redefining existing letters. In two cases existing letters are redefined in accordance with a rather odd principle, that the traditional name of a letter must decide its value. Hence H is used to spell church, which becomes her, and G is used to spell judge, which becomes gug. This of course makes it necessary for G. W. to include among his new symbols 1//H/ and 1//G/. The new symbols as used in the pamphlet are produced by inverting or reversing existing letters, but these may possibly be makeshifts, used in place of more ambitious shapes which were beyond the reach of his printer. He suggests, for instance, page 20, the sign Taurus with a football between his horns, as one of his vowel symbols. On the whole, we find the vowels much less systematically tackled than the consonants, and it is proposed that accents, cambrils, should for the most part be used to provide extra symbols. The pamphlet, however, only exemplifies this sporadically. 3. Magazine contains a considerable number of words, and a few consecutive texts, transcribed partly or wholly in the new system of spelling, and these necessarily will have to be assessed as evidence of contemporary English pronunciation by students of the subject. It is not easy to be sure how accurate a phonetic observer and transcriber G.W. was, but if we make some allowance for misprints, we find a certain consistency in his transcriptions, and an apparent freedom from any bias given by the traditional spelling, which make one think he was moderately reliable. In this connection, it is of some importance to find out, if possible, where he came from. He shows familiarity both with northern and western types of speech, but although he seems to imply, on page 7, that he is not a North Countryman, E.J. Dobson has found, on the basis of certain forms which appear in the pamphlet, that there is a strong suggestion that he spoke a northern dialect. 4. Until recently I had been able to form no idea of the identity of G.W. However, it now seems to be very possible that he was John White, a Devon schoolmaster, and author of The Countryman's Conductor in Reading and Writing True English, which was published in Exeter in 1701. 5. The name John, in G.W.'s reformed spelling, would of course begin with G. It is indeed so spelled on page 15. White was interested in spelling reform, as we know from various remarks in his book, and if he was G.W., it would explain the familiarity shown in Magazine with Western dialect. What is particularly striking, moreover, is the similarity of White's style to G.W.'s, as the following quotations from The Countryman's Conductor will show, of certain grammarians. You shall seldom hear them speak Latin but in alehouses, or when they are well oiled. Of specimens of early English. Some may laugh at it, and thereby expose their rusty teeth that will look as old as the English. Of using an accent to show long vowels. This would look strange till it come in fashion, but in time would set as tight as topknots do now. 5. One final resemblance must be mentioned. Whether or not White was G.W., there can hardly be any doubt that Magazine was printed by Samuel Farley of Exeter, the printer of White's book. The typographical similarity between Magazine and The Countryman's Conductor, and other works printed by Farley, is too complete to be coincidental. Not only are the identical fonts used, but there are numerous other points where the general manner of printing is the same. Further research may confirm White's authorship, but there is certainly no other obvious candidate among the writers of the time. David Abercrombie. University of Edinburgh. Notes to the Introduction. Magazine, or Animadversions. On the English spelling. Observing the contradictions of the English letters warring themselves against themselves, and one with another, by intrusions and usurpations, with amendment offered. For the benefit of all teachers and learners, writers and readers, composers and scriveners, whether strangers or natives, who are concerned with our English tongue. Nunquam sera est ad bonos mores via syntax. By G. W. London, printed for the author. 1703, price 6d. A2. Magazine, that is low learning, too high for the capacity of the vulgar, or the scholar schooled. Viz., babble pulled down, and confusion confounded. The latter survey of the English letters, and ways of amendment, where things are too much amiss to be excused, only referring all to the goodwill of those that are willing to amend their perceived mistakes and unwilling to fall into their former errors again. Viz. Babel. Q. Horitage Flaci, Epistolarum Liber Secundus. Ad Augustum Epist. I. Paulo Post Initium. Si meliora dies, ut vina poemata reddit Syri velum, precium chartis quotis erigat annus. Scriptor ab hinc annos centum cadecidit, inter perfectos veteresque, referi debet, and inter viles et novos? Excludat Georgia finis. Est vitus ac probus centum caperficit annos. Quid? Could deperiat minor uno mens vel anno. Inter quos referens erit veteris and potas. And quos in presens and postera respuat itis? Ist cadem vetters, interponiter honeste. Cavel mens brevi vel toto est junior anno. Vidur permisso, caud ac pilos utia quina politum velo, and demo idiom unum. Dum cadat dot. The second book of epistles of Quintus, Horatius, Flaccus. The first epistle unto the Emperor Augustus Caesar, in whose days our Saviour Christ was born. Thus Englished. There is a thing I fain would know, as age doth make wines better, whether to papers it doth so, and what's writ on't with letter, and what age gives a reverence to papers I would know, if author's credit's got by tense of 100 years or mo. An ancient current author then, and 100 years is old? Or is he of the slight gown men, that writ then as 'tis told? Set down the time that strife may cease, and 100 years is good, if 1 month short, or year he bears, doth he slick in the mud? No, for 1 month or year, we grant, and very honestly too, he shall be counted ancient without so much ado. A3 what you do grant, I'm very free to use now at my pleasure, another month, or year, dec I'll bate, as I have leisure, so hair by hair, from the mare's tail I'll pull, as well I may. So what is good, is quickly stale, though writ but the other day. Q. Horitage Flacci, Epistolarum Liber Secundus. Ad Augustum Epist. I. Paulo post initium. Si meliora dies, ut vina poemata reddit Syri velum, precium chartis quotis erigat annus. Scriptor ab hinc annos centum codicidit, inter perfectos veteresque, referi debet, and inter viles ac novos? Excludat Georgia finis. Est vitus ac probus centum co perficit annos. Quid? Could deperiat minor uno mens vel anno. Inter quos referens erit veteris and potus. And quos in presens and postera respuat itis? Ist cadem vetters, interponiter honeste. Cavel mens brevi vel toto est junior anno. Vidur permisso, caud ac pilos utia quina politum velo, and demo idiom unum. Dum cadat dot. S. The second book of epistles of Quintus, Horatius, Flaccus. The first epistle unto the Emperor Augustus Caesar, in whose days our Saviour Christ was born. Quintus, Horatius, Flaccus. Augustus Caesar. Thus Englished. There is a thing I fain would know, as age doth make wines better. Whether to papers it doth so, and what's writ on't with letter. And what age gives a reverence to papers I would know. If author's credit's got by tense of 100 years or mo? An ancient current author then, and 100 years is old? Or is he of the slight gown men, that writ then as 'tis told? Set down the time that strife may cease, and 100 years is good. If 1 month short, or year he bears, doth he slick in the mud? No, for 1 month or year, we grant, and very honestly too. He shall be counted ancient without so much ado. A3 what you do grant, I'm very free to use now at my pleasure. A3. Another month, or year, dec I'll bate, as I have leisure. So hair by hair, from the mare's tail I'll pull, as well I may. So what is good, is quickly stale, though writ but the other day. That we make something to discour upon further, I'll take an example or two from the 2 tables, wherein one sound is spelled diverse ways, and again the same letters make diverse sounds. First then, az days praise phrase gaze. Fi. F. A. Asia day fair where air. E. Phoebe key the sea yeah way there holy. I why hi try tie by. Oh, who no bow to do. You, true do hue neuter give you jail, jailer, goal, John gives dat, gives comps, gill of fishes, gill of water, ague, plague, anger, and danger, guard, regard, spring, a well, spring of steel, jet, and ginger, and finger, ghost, god, and germs, and age, ages, cares. Our children are not witches, that they should guess to read right by the letter, such stuff as this, and the masters are no very great conjurers, to perceive nothing, what contradictions they make swallow. First then days, that is the yes, why should not yes spell yes at the end, as well as at the beginning of a word again, why might we not spell days thus, days as well as praise, and spell praises, praise, SEIC day, why not SEC as well as he, H? And why not days, days, and phrase, phrase, or phrase, and days, days? And why not days, or days, daisy, or daisy, hey daisy? How can ladies be bland for writing bad English, when scholars spell no better? A as Asia, why not da, fair and where? How can one vowel have another, at command to make it long? A circumflex might do it. But you answer it is our custom, and books would not be read if we changed the spelling. But is there not a right spelling as ancient as wrong? Is not the as ancient as way, yes, see, holy key? Then 'tis wit to use the proper spelling, and leave off impertinencies. And if fewer letters will serve the turn, 'twill save paper and ink, and 'tis strange, if not labor too, for writers, no doubt for teachers it will. And how many ways do we pronounce you? Yo, yow, you, yet every dialect praise their own speech, nay in towns near together, nay in the same town, nay in the same house, persons born in other places, differ in pronunciation, and many delight to hear different dialects, as the Grecians did, so they did but understand one another, though some precise females do condemn all but their own finical pronunciation. But why should phrase be spelled with ph and s, and not f and z? Because you say its original is a Greek word, but it hath been long enough freely used amongst us, that it may claim prescription for a license to put on the English garb, and suits pretty well with the original Phi Alpha Zeta Omega A4, and hath it not a single f in Greek? So might be phras, and take with it the Greek precispamine, it's right. Phi Alpha Zeta Omega A4. But if we spell praise thus, praise we alter the sense. Why the eyes are as much in the dark to distinguish sound, as the ears are put to silence at the shape of letters, and which of these is the fitter judge in this controversy, to bring knowledge to the understanding? That is to be observed well, but what's learnt in childhood is uncontrollable, as good as prescription of 100 years, and a schooldame's authority is irrefragable, as the proverb says, early crooks the tree, that will good cambril be, that to unlearn a youthful error is more than to serve an apprenticeship, or take the degree of a doctor or sergeant. For these are deaf and dumb to learn the contrary, as the dead letters they have learned, though I am loath to compare them to the English Dr. Burnet's antediluvian people petrified in the Alps, which he saw in his travails. But in some parts they speak as we spell, though the countrymen of the north in apron and iron pronounce O after R, and we before it. Why should we keep their spelling, having lost their speech? And why should they not still keep their spelling of old, who still keep the speech? 'Tis this thought by some of the learned, that English is the hardest language in the world, for that foreigners coming over, being past children, never have our speech right, but may be discerned to be no English born, whereas we after a short abode in outlands, speak their tongue as well as natives. Our folk being a mixture of many nations, is so of languages, but 'tis a wonder, so free as we are to take in their words, we take not in their letters also. The Latines have but 12 consonants, and 5 vowels, and h, but the Greek and Hebrew may furnish us with letters. The neighboring countries are at a loss for them as well as we. If our credit be good, we want to borrow 2 letters of the Greek, gamma, and theta, and 4 of the Hebrew, thalith, he, aim, and shin, and we should be set up, and with what shift we can make of our own. In the first place, what is the English of quotas? But now my pen is silent, except I borrowed the 2 Greek letters, and thalith of the Hebrew, and the acute, and Greek circumflex, to tell how Gotham, got heard, or gather, is to be read, and which is meant of the 24. Gotham, 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 go tm, Gotm, go tm, Gotm, go cm, Gocm, go cm, Gocm, Gotham, 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 go tm, Gotm, go tm, Gotm, go cm, Gocm, Gotham, go cm. G is gamma, T is theta, D thalith. 'Tis strange my tongue should be longer than my arms, without eking. 'Tis hard for dunces to understand this, as all wilful fools are. Humble humility is better than the miserable wisdom of the merciless knowledge of error. Cunning fooleries and vanities unlocked for, to spell the same sound diverse ways, and when you have all done, you are but where you was, as praise, praisey. For why may not y stand for nothing after s, as well as after a, as may, but where no reason there is for custom, custom is no reason. Daisy, and days is all one. As the fool thinks, so the bell chinks, for our letters are like women's wollays bells. Sure, if we have these tricks, we have more. Why, if y doth no good, it doth nothing. But I have a mind it shall stand, and outside there out of the way, as daisy is days. Doth go d spell the Creator, it spells an Hebrew letter as well. If you hold your book the wrong end upward, I've nothing to say against it, for 'tis your own, and you may hold it as you please. But to go on according to prescript. 2. Whether or no are our 24 letters sufficient to spell all the words of our English tongue? A. 3. Whether or no if they be sufficient to spell all words us for English in our books, they be not sufficient to spell all languages. If England be like Rome, conquering all nations, took in the idola, re of all laws, so England being conquered by all, hath not got the rubish of all languages. 4. Whether or no we make good and proper use of those letters we have. 5. Whether the old use and custom of the letters for 100 years or more be sufficient for justifying the misspelling most words, us to this day, or whether we had not better mend late than never. Hereupon we argue. First, it is granted that we have not yet proper English for all words in other languages, nor letters sufficient to express our own, as authors from time to time do justify, who have been so little taken notice of by the public, though there is some small amendment made, that can scarce be perceived. The latter authors mentioning the former, all men of no small note. Secondly, there was as good reason for amendment 100 years ago, as there is now, and will be as good reason 100 years hence to delay the amendment, as there is now, not altering a tittle of the known pronunciation of the words, but only of the spelling. That the letters may be of good use, and we need not to read all by authority, as the very learned men are for to do in yet unknown words still, so little assistance do the letters yield them, that they the more might pity young beginners. Which thing hath made a many foreigners, and no marvel at all, of all the neighboring nations to throw away their books and study of English, as their English grammars, as well as our own, do sufficiently declare. Thus to maintain a thing always unreasonable, will always be, as it hath been, a thing unreasonable, and after this rate an error everlasting. But it is answered that many words be thus spelled to shew their derivations. That need not be objected, when scholars can find out the etymologies, when scarce one letter remains of their original, more than James from Jacob, Thaddeus and Lebbeus, from Jude the Honest, or Judas, not Iscariot, and Didymus from Thomas, Giles the Judaeus. As for changing the letters, I shall hope they will put the divinas in. I fear not that they can put the lawyers out. What advantage or disadvantage it may be to booksellers or printers, as none of my business, I leave to their consideration. But now to strike at the root of so many errors begotten by false letters, besides a false finical speech according to the letters, being illiterately literate, as calf, oat, goust. The second part of low learning high. The order. 1. Vowels 2. Diphthongs 3. Consonants. VO. V. As us 7 ways, and other vowels so, when thus, or so, it doth amaze, we have no mark to know. First, a long and chamber change danger commanded. Secondly, short and amber hanged anger, understanding. Now suppose Renard the Fox, or the like old book, was reprinted, and a long cambrilled, which the Greeks call perispamine, and a short knot, would not that be a good guide for reading old Renard unreprinted, with a right pronunciation, though there be no difference in a long or short? Next, if it would please the wisdom of foolish custom, in whose errors of this kind, though in nothing else, all religions meet, being long enough advanced in time, to think fit to amend in the copy, or at least in the margin, where words are far otherwise spelled than they are pronounced, which the Hebrews call Kari and Kethia, the copy as written, but carry the margin as read, marked with asterisk, one to the other. I believe our printers could as easily cambrill our English vowels, as circumflex the Latin, which would be a sure guide for reading. 3. Delay and 4 teach ly, a short without either rule or reason before a consonant or two, with the after, as ace, acre, able, unstable, father, with a long, and solace, massacre, constable, gather, with a short. 5 tchly, a put for a cambril to make e or o long, as bare, greater, broad, board. 6 tchly, put like a cambril, and is not a cambril, either, as Beatrice, create, creature, so is I a false cambril to a, as foreigners. When a person is in commission, he should wear the livery of his office. But when he signifies nothing, he should not put it on, nay rather, he had better keep at home. 7 tchly, a standing for just nothing, but as the shadow of a cambril, as heaven, earth, bread, head, realm, meadow, read in the preterperfect tense. In a rail of pails, if one be out to let in one hog, 'tis enough to let in the whole herd into the close, is an observation applicable to the premises. E long and short, and we can see no cause for it in equally and equity, in cement, regard, torment, rebel, register, long and short in the same words being acute when verbs, and penacute when nouns. But any child or foreigner, that never heard the words spoken, might uneasily guess at the true pronunciation by the sense, that an acute would be a great ease and comfort to the reader and teacher, and no great trouble to the printer. 3 delay, and 4 tchly, e long and short before 2 cambrils to bear up its train, viz. E before, and e after a consonant, also g and e, or I and gh, 3 cambrils, as beer, with a and e, but here with but 1 cambril, way with 2 or 3, in east, bread stead, it makes no use of the cambrils, only for state a must dance attendance, as in many hundreds more. 5 tchly, and 6 tchly, e long and short before a consonant or 2, and another e, as steple, people, treble, and indelible. 7 tchly, syllables are long without e for a cambril, as dost, most, ghost, bright, right, sign, design, and short, notwithstanding e cambril as hence, since, prince, possible, facile, but prince and simple proper names be spoken, with I long, that an unknown reader mistake not the persons' names. But how nonsensically e is used in the end of syllables short in live, love, gives, but long, alive, and gives, fetters, and is pronounced and unpronounced before s, as rages, wages, cages, horses, asses, churches, and porches, and not in cares, fears, hopes, robes, bones, and making I long and not, as writer, fighter, miter, hither and thither, in weather, e short, and weather, in neither e long. Likewise e is pronounced and unpronounced in the middle, as commandments, righteous, covetous. Stupefy, not in careful, careless, grateful, fearful, not in Wednesday, and is pronounced after a diphthong or double consonant, very needlessly, as in, an, assy, poor, room, joy, cause, laws, coif, choice, juice, and as badly after syllables made long by a or I, as fears, roads, thire, vein, veil, either. In Beresford the latter e is mispronounced by scholarship, mistaken to make it trisyllable. 8 tchly, e is pronounced sometimes singly in the end of words, as in Phoebe, Cyrene, Penelope, Euterpe. But these be Greek words, but so is not the in b. But what an husteron proteron is this to teach the Greek grammar before the Baldur? 9 tchly, e put for in they, there, and for I in ever, never, evil, wevel, devil. 10th, e put for e, as Peter, Stephen, even, he, she, me, we. And sometimes I for the same, as yield, believe, friend, and otherwise in fiend, friend, diet, quiet, but not alike neither, but let that run upon th tongue, made long in people by o, also in hefness. Viz. Heavens, f pronounced as v, left out in George, beer, friend, leave out I, sieve, e, diet, and quiet, taken both. 11th, e free long, as beer, drink, deer, venison. 12th, sometimes e for twice, e, as Beersheba, overseer. 13th, y and e, both for 1 cambril, because one was perhaps too weak. The 1 cambril seems enough for 1 small vale, as days, ways, also I and e, as hares, praise, and w and e, as shows, knows, crows, not in lose. But why may not w serve after a and e, and why after o, I know not. Methinks the dead letters should not be coy on what cambril they're hanged on, but I must ask the butchers, and what doth e after I'll, for I will. 14th, e defective and sayest, fleeth, freest, agreed, that prodigal as he is of its company, should ever be wanting is a wonder, where there ought to be 3 e's, or ez, or thrice e, 2 for a diphthong, if it may be 1 for the syllable, that the distinction may see me not heard between seeth, beholdeth, and see the boil, e is added. But alas, it is objected lately within this 7 years by G. B. that compositors leave out e in days and ways, and such like, gramercy for that. But why do they not leave out y also, which signifies not more, but less than e, and why is not I and e cast out of praise and raise, and e from wife and strife, which adorn the words no more than beauty spots do a whore's face, and why is not w for a black patch, cast awa from no and blow, as well as da, and why have cast awa their pock arry, and why is not w to do, where there's need? That to need no mock tuther why the los, and why the load of w, now indeed we have cast awa ug from though. And although, when some sound is of them, and not left gh out in bright, light thought, where they signify no more than a chip, or herb gone in poor dg, see ha! Ha! He! Yet in floweth and knoweth w sounds well, having an influence in the following vowel. C. 15th, other varieties to make a syllable long without e, as in boast, board, coasts, coals, not holes. Also short I, as veil, either, and sometimes 'tis a diphthong, as neighbor, 8. Also o, as people, and fef, hefness. And u, as fur, foul, not in honor, neighbor, where o and u stand for as good as nothing. And all vowels be us supervacaneously before l, n, or r, as in brethren, coffin, children, open, navel, wevel, not in cavil, sibyl, and civil, apron, button, mutton, iron, reason, bacon, treason, and in proper names as Gaxon, Gonson, Wilson, Thompson, Rependon, Repton, Donington, not in godson, common, but in cousin. All vowels be used in vain before r, as pillar, cellar, winter, summer, dinner, kerfer, as it were cover, fire, honor, donhour, neighbor, pleasure, measure, nature, feature, scripture, martyr. I is us severally. First and to delay, I long and short in the same circumstances, as blind, find, mind, with I long, kindred, limb, shrimp, pinch, with I short, gh makes I long, as bright, might, plight, and see, and I is long without m, as bite, kite, right. 3 delay and 4 teach ly, I short with a consonant, and e after it, as lives, gives, nouns and verbs, Bible, possible, triple, tribbled, idle, fidle, prince, prince. 5 thoy, and 6 thoy, making e long, and not as before. 7 thoy, used in vain, as gainful, and c, as before, also e and a put for I, as borage, savage, knowledge, college, not in hedge and nonage, also y was us formerly for I. But most abominably I is us for g, which is unpardonable, when g being a letter of a double meaning can do without, as jail, or goal, why should it infect I with its own distemper, to be double-minded? B lastly, w, h, y, g, h, ma not make all vowels long as well as I, and w, h, y ma not ye and we make vowels long, as well as a, e, and o, we must ask t, h, e natural p, h, ilosop, h, airs w, h, at simpat, h, y or antipat, h, y is in t, h, e lettres, and w, h, et, h, are an occult quality, or t, h, e divines, if t, h. There be not a mystery in it above nature before we adventure to tia and song the battledore, and w, h, y I ma not supply t, h, e place of y rat, h, or t, h, and g as in yate, yell, yule, younger, as Italians. B. Th is, h, had been very excusable, and not wit, h, out anti president. As likewise w, h, y some consonants take exception at some vowels, or some vowels at t, h, m, t, h, at t, h, e, y change t, h, e, I our meaning? As c and g, sometimes before e and I, and t before ion sometimes. 8 thly, w, h, why not always wit h out exception, if t, h, be a supernatural cause, for we are sure t, h, EIR is no natural one, for T, H, SAT, H, ings, T, H, EY will declare it, if not, T, H, air must needs be a preternatural one. O is used accordingly, as most, dost, lost, tossed. 3 delay and 4 teach ly, as some, come, H, done, gone, short in Joan, Joanne, Joachim, A and O part. Also L makes O long, as roll, pull, not extol, and W, H, why not OTH or vowels too? O for OE as MODH or among from. O for U, as brought H or come some word, world, won't, THE verb, and not H or good, blood, not yonder. O for A, nort, H early, as parage, H, arses, carn, amang. U is us promiscuously, as appears in the vowels aforegoing, but not so frequently as the rest, as H, ug long, hug short, H, yurge voluble, superfluous after B and G, as build, guard, not regard, Q being called cu, needs a not, guide, not Gilbert. But V consonant not called ev, with a different character, is no less absurd than J consonant, not called ij, with a different figure, as measure for measure, as the French also use it, as je ver mercy. So osier, H, osier, easier, azure, and C. F us for V anciently, as D for th, as fader, but spoken as we do now, ev is us for F in the West, as vire, veiled, for fire, field, and we put P for V in upper, the Hebrews put Veth for it, Beth for B, the Spaniards make V, B, but to let other languages alone, we pass to the diphthongs, whereof 3 be very absurd, E for which the Latins ust ij, as idem oculi lucent, idem feritatis imago est, ov. Met. The Greeks made et double e, as also o omega. 2. O, for which the Latins ust u, as uva, uyala, and the British and Hebrews w. 3. All o, as augur, mauger, law, all, calf, se the rest in l, and ao properly, as greo, jail, got. Ai as straight, again, not wait, ei as 8, not neither. O as boil, not the noun. Uu is served by o, and so forth. No thanks for it. Ui as juice. Ou as ought, not out. O is put for ao, ou for o, as sauce, souse. B2 eu or ewu neuter is right. B2. Iu as view might be mended thus via. Ou is common, as could cow, but there is difference between o long and short. O is often used for a triphthong, y in British. Ouu as hone, stone, door, through, whore, for, more. In ouo is oft left out, as double, trouble. L is us for o, as Ralph, H, Alf, calf, malt, H, alt, salt and scalp, not in, H, elth and wealth, and delt, L is so used after E, as elf, not self, whelm, gilium, not elm. Lastly, L is for you, as old, cold, gold, fold, bold, colt, bolt, not in dolt. If ae, eo, ie, and ea be diphthongs, and lawfully married by banes, or licenses, I'm sure it is but in H, alf char marriage, for they, for a just impediment, never bed together. Amendment offered. Make a cambril over the vowels to make M long, and this will cure innumerable errors, and there will be no more mistakes or abuse of the vowels, and this will save a world of trouble. But because the tittle of I stands in the way, give a dash for I long, and let a low apostrophe, as high as the bodies of the letters, stand for I short, and I with a tittle for double I or E. So, mal, mel, mill, mol, mul. Mal, mel, mill, mol, mul. D. D. Then ask the printer whether a cambril set over the vowels be not as good and cheap as an E, A, O, or GH at the end. But W, H, at difference can we make in figures, between OU, long O, and short O. Thus, like the sign Taurus E after the Greek fashion is short OU, or speak tongue, OU at length H, is long O wit HU, and again the sign Taurus wit H, a football between H, is H, orns is T, H, E trift H, on, T, H, E reason belongs to grammar. E. For to lay sound upon sound wit H out sig H, T, is as field upon field, false heraldry. But as for suc, H, as h, ave th, eir for h, eads no broader t, h, and th, eir badlor, they must stick in the old nuke at q in the corner, not 7 years, but 70 times 7. 'Tis not a sin sate h, ap h, ilosop h or th, and I cannot spell wel, but th, and I cannot live well. If we, h, ave th, is error from the lawyers we, h, ob 'tis lawful, for to put in letters in a word or words in a deed, more th, and enug, h, often. But the lawyer's English may be no better th, and h is Latin, th, e1 as h, are to be spelled, as th, eodh are to be parsed. Next we come to the consonants. Third part of babbling babble undermined, the eyes submitting to the ears. Babble. Consonants do sometimes stand for nug, h, t, sometimes for one and not h or co, c. But w, h, and stands ea one as a dug, h, t? W, h, and stands it for its brought h or b3. B3. B is a consonant h, at h, no name sake, as none ug h, t to have. For put a vowel before or after it, it's all one for the name and value, for every value of a letter is according to its name, or ug, h, t to be, for the name is proper to the figure as call, d or ed, 'tis all one, as our o ed, rod. Call bb, or eb, but use custom, 'tis h, helpful w, h, and proper, h, hurtful w, h, and improper. B is overplus in lamb, t, h, umb, det, doubt, and w, h, at need is t, h, heir of t, h, sa unnecessary b's, scarce one in a parish besides the parson t, h, inks t, h, e2 last come of Latin words, debitum and debito, w, h, heir t, h, ey are pronounced. B is a letter of t, h, ellipse, shutting t, h, ellipse before t, h, e vowel, w, h, and it begins a syllable, and after a vowel when it ends, so do the rest in bmf viz. Ev we mfp. A rule useful for schoolteachers, for short-tongued children, for easy utterance use the upper letters for the neither. B, G, D, V, G, J, Z, C, Y, R, 4, P, C, T, F, H, J, S, T, K, R. Probatum est. By one I had a scholar, could speak none of the neither letters, till he, h, had learned, after the West, g, untry fashion, and the rules of the learned grammars, to pronounce the upper first. We are not a war, h, Oma are deceitful letters, h, Indra the learning, and refining English, and h, o true letters would furthrit. Mad cw c s spells sound c e sam, stylo novo. Betras qh and k. Desetfield denise its nam, and s do c it betra. Dissembly v cy c nidals vod, ov redi v brex c enec. Unnals it h av a proper nam, and spelly v suits y c c. C g is an il example, and is a triple tna v ccc eras. Ad. Augustus adu c trample, scab for aol h rails bra v. Ovi sears c e blind letter is, d e dead c e livy v rul aristoph. And w, ot a tersum task is c is to what upon a feel? Larg h, ozen h avy and larg tons, and larg have no bu. Larg cots and tlocks h, avy and g ons, or fit in letter stocks. It nivers to lat to t, riv, nor to invent j ons ad. For silrounds yrac are striv, done main pawns ov led. Now see at I my utroli si, certan to me sa. If lick you sim and no friend be, non leds me worse wa. In Christ was c, is aol as il, men to know not c at c and c at men love dark and still, no fought and endless fur. As ct and h to fuel our ovr and ovr in hatch and catch, and c, so da d, non without deset, in Wednesday, hedge, judge, spring, grudge, badge, before where G may do well without its false H, Alp or Cumberplace. Before. F is unpronounced in mastiff, and T is spoken instead of F, in handful, armful, sackful. But it hath manifest wrong done it, by his convertible P, and its unconvertible H, against their own names too, as Philip. Whereas PH helped no more for spelling Philip, than it doth Alexander. Now if you had said her spells church, and Gug spells judge, I could easily believe it. But heap, God, thy, hang, shame, which are none of the 7 spelled by the letters we intend should spell them, either can any Englishman for his ears, eyes and wits, spell any of these words, and millions more like more by his 24 English letters, make what shift he can, while England is England, and have both universities, Cambridge and Oxford to help him, and all the universities beyond the seas to help them. Viz. YEPGODCITIYAVJIVWIH, also F and HIF, KED pleasure. 4. Terp est doctor cum culpa redargit ipsum. According to Cato. Unto the teacher it's a shame, in others his own faults to blame. Thus you perceive the whole world is but in the battledore, and learning is in the cradle, and the sayings of this book, as Macrune's to invite her to the taking her letters to keep up old custom. As Horace H. adjudged in his first sermon. Pueris dant crustula blandi doctors elementa velant ut desir prima. Kind teachers give boys bun and cake, their letters for to learn them make. G is deaf in sign, not signify, and G, H, in bug H, T, brug H, T, not in cug H, thrug H, enug H, W, H, IH is strangely spoken, stuff, enug H, bug H, S, enug H, corn enug H, and sig H, ed, and G, H, ed spells H, ed, if EC be not cast away, let K be G, H, A, else K, unless for G, H, as in back, stack, crack, would be a vain, impertinent letter, and deserves, as Sue, in an orderly family to be CIC'd out OTH doors. For our battledore is a well dash, G, over inside W, H, IH shuts out all idle impertinent persons, as vagrants wit, H, T, H, EIR extravagancies out OT, H, gates. H is vain, in ghost, SC, H, Ola, not in ch, but C is TH, error it deserves to be turned out of doors, for losing its good name, H, aving work anug, H, to live of its trade, and is an interloper, sounding one T, H, ing by itself, a not H, or in word spelling, that she ma not be, H, one is by, H, herself, and a knave in company. L in will, bell, mall, full, and T, H thousands more. M in gem, stem, and C. N in Henry and proper names, as Normanton, Ripenden, Dunnington. Th e former N is un H sherd. P in receipt, not accept, and mig H T as well be left out, as in deceit, conceit, of T H e same sin, so empty temptation. S in isle, island, ass, as is U Z, S single as es. T in Whitsunday, and watch, catch, clutch. U is turned into Ev, Coventry, Daventry, oven for Quintry, Dauntry, Uin, and Yut, see Mr. Dugdale. So our letters rat, H, are more than mend our language, W, H, and long spelled, but more letters would do well in the alphabet, W, H, IH is preparing, but fewer in most words to spell properly. We is us T, H, reways, as a vowel, as now, H, ow, as a consonant in we, went, as nothing, in no, show, and bow. Ye is us 4 ways, as a consonant, as ye, yes, as a long and short vowel, as W, H, Y, H, only and doubtful, as my T, H, Y, and as not H, ing in May Day. W, H, and each letter H at H, but one meaning one, the reading is certain as 2 and 21, one wants W, and 2 must spare it. Z is scarce us in vain, but as many consonants are double to make a short vowel, as buzz, but as most us for S after all letters but P, C, T, for plurals and T, H, E like, S and Z seem to cross one another, as raise and raise, and X for Z, as bows. Since renown AUT, H, ors of late, h, ave left out ug, as t, h, ug h, and the like, writing t, h, o if they, h, had left out w and y superfluous, as no, ro, d, t, h, r, and put out all vain letters, and cambrilled the vowels, the idle letters would never, h, ave come in again. Now if books were begun to be all printed by t, h, essay directions, t, h, ey would make all other old books easier read, and more truly pronounced, t, h, false spelling being discovered and amended. But letters are neither here nor there, for all this, in every circuit there is something of a particular dialect, differing from the common English, though the Western and Northern differ most. Now when we speak of altering the letters, we alter not, but establish and settle the known speech, which is no more but to alter or remove the sign when it directed to the wrong, h, us, but the in all the while is the same. If one be in the north or west, he had best speak as they do, that he may be readily understood, which is the end of speech. We have corruptions enough in our letters to corrupt all languages writ with them. If our letters were thus corrected, a stranger or homebred might learn as much English in a day, as otherwise in a month or more. Put nature in art's cradle, and its fet in the stocks. There have been many changes of overment this 100 years, yet the same errors rule, that we are, and no body for promises better. But what ails you to be so bitter against the letters? Why, I look at them as the dark house to lodge all our errors in, and a feather-bed, where all, both errors and unknown sins may be elodged. Therefore I pull out the straws out of your bolster, that I may let light into the house, that you ma see you lodge in a thorn bush instead of a feather-bed. But I find, God help us both, that at all final errors are friends of the greater, that neither am I able by these letters to speak, nor you to understand me by writing. Nay, no man is by old letters able so much as to hint what he would have the new ones called, but the old will insinuate their sufficiency. The fourth part, of instructions instructed, or light out of darkness. The first table, wherein the self-same sounds are spelled by different letters, first right, and then wrong. Aasa, Manna, Joshua, Asia, Judah, Hannah, why ma we not cast awa the Hebrew he out of words, as well as the Latins and Greeks have done? They say there they fair. These letters that be not pronounced are very welcome to be gone, the door stands wide open. A, E as be the Phoebe ye way key holy. If propagating error be lawful, 'tis lawful to teach wrong. I as I vi, lie thy why thy by, for the first might as lawfully be spelled like the last, as as the last is wrong spelled, but more lawfully ma the last be spelled as your first. Oh, do no so to right to do bows slow. If you be pronounced in flow, 'tis a diphthong, let you take its place, wrong. You as true blue hue new, a single U might stand for you, if it please you, but not for your beauty. Ao jail, got, grayo, gul, law sauce, calf, scalp, cog, ht, tog, ht. Al as ale, fail, but fail in old books. L as kale, meal, seal, veil, and veal. Il, mile, isle, island, boil, pile. Ol, mole, soul, coal, roll, pole. All dual, the strag, test road, the shortest rule. Sore against shins it goes to go about, where you've but one road, you cannot go out. So im, im, in, on, as claim, lem, rooms, alms, tombs, sovereign, foreigners, sign, groan, hewn. Have two straight lines from point to point you shall, asterisk pseudography agiometrical. Asterisk bz. So ae and sofert before rstz beer, igh bore sore for lower case ace raise base piece cease rise price justice prose slows prize wise eyes lies rise verb size use noun truce nose foes blows use verb suit and evet, but s is us for z too oft, the more intolerable, but z should be us when it makes a distinction between noun and verb. As use, rise, abuse. Conceit, wit, out receipt, is mere deceit. Jams, jail, joe, n, goal, magistrate, majesty, geese, fleece, sig, ed, yady, saddled, glad, titled, clad, battled, no, friend, wench, good, blood, wort, unt, gentle, jeer, wit, city, situate, year, aviar, Joshua, now, nug, as factious, precious, anxious, conscience, show, fashion, oscua, these why the help of the friend, as quel hose, and old author's mob be quadrupled all wrong. So X for K's, as flax, stacks, sex, next, six, sticks, fox, rocks, flux, bucks. What spells GUG, QIC, REPN, SCOLR, if wrong, as no business there, be pleasant, right, at not ing to do air, is pleasanter, unless to please os at of yar wits wit out will of ears misled by eyes and sold by body therefore suppose at are fashions for soul as well as the body in Old Church Bible OVK J it's ye now so formerly foreigners, now foreigners, Raleigh. Erswit with a witness. But these are no more besides their wits, and are wit, out their wits, at of are wits wit, in These that can paint the voice can limn out souls too. No doubt very learned men. At understand frets on great fidel, and wit, out gamut, can pric down proper sounds to words in visible shapes, according to new fashion. Pra take not out the fails the old fat, airs put to our words, lest posterity serve you no better, as Hiram, Hierusalem, ripe, snite, night, as hawser. The time shall come that doctors and knights shall be as common as woodcocks and snites. With cramboes or books full many a score, as good as these you find, I'll add no more. Difficilia quae pulchra. Hard to be done, a dude is Sir Dhe great dispute. A table of the self-same leaders, spelling words of a far different sound. As with, bath, bathe, sith, both, loth, oath, smith, smithy, breath of, off, then, yet, liveth or liveth, joth or joth, mouth, path or path, wrath, wreath, faith or faith, thigh, this, thistle, thou, thousand, thank, they, them, thus, thunder, thine, thin, goal or goal, as afore, motion, crimson, action, actian, singed, hanged, changed, shepherd, shaphat, dishonor, ashamed, bishop. Mishap, character, charity, duck herd, blockhead, duchess. Gather, success, suggest, halve, ridge, Hagen who, come, on, you know what I mean, as well as orzes. War, rod, scepter, skeptic, syllables, bless, access, axes, oxen, Christ cross, bows, beauty, anchor, kernel, acres, crased, threadned, need, bodies, winged, nod, is cut off from with, come, after another of the same, at why them. To read English after the names of the letters, which is blameless, max English as strang as to read after the French fashion. What would become of Gyregal, wither, league, thing, Jehoshaphat? Put an apostrophe, called SWA in Hebrew, between every two consonants, viz. A short I, the spelling is discerned as well as with a touchstone, that you may perceive easily that falsehood is not in good earnest. So George, Gorge, Gemara, Esau, Hus or use noobs, Rigo, Joshua, where V is the first letter in the four first, middlemost in fist, in the last all wrong. That no wonder if the Bible translators took up the blanket, and left the child behind him, when St. Hiram says the Hebrew letters are not to be expressed by the Western figures, I think truly, and for want of accents church readers wickedly miscall Bible words, as Theobilus, Jericho, Goliath, Caesarea, a Decapolis, Penacutes or Prepenacutes, also Haggai 4 ways. A doubly letter in Hebrew of the same sort, being Dashed, prevents all mistakes, as so, God, yes, for the goddesses. But for example's sake, as far as anything can really be expressed by English letters, without bodging patching, or bungling balderdash or barbarous gallimaufry of our romantic letters, obscurer than the Egyptian hieroglyphics. I will subscribe an old saying in English, as easy as anything, if custom and fashion to it. And as in mulcarid runnets of wine, but dias did gran under burn gret. Quod mal mater, what all you dust to win? And under your lidge lod so sore to sweat? Is double br if I tack one ov din which br a lick if thou tack one ov min. Pride syngometer duus dis vet. Doctrina non habet inimicum praeter ignorantum. Of erudition ders no circumstance had any enemy but ignorance. But premises rightly understood desire the exhibition of a complete alphabet, to read English as easily as G. Reek. Therefore I shall end this book by the first letter of the ensuing battledore. A B B D D D C E F F G G G G H H Y H I J J C C K K F F M M N N V V O O P P Q Q R S S J J T T T T U U V V W W W W X X Y Y Z N. Finus. William Andrews Clark Memorial Library, University of California. William Andrews Clark Memorial Library, University of California. The Augustine Reprint Society. General Editors. R. C. Boys University of Michigan. R. C. Boys University of Michigan. R. C. Boys. Vinton A. Deering University of California, Los Angeles. Vinton A. Deering University of California, Los Angeles. Vinton A. Deering. Ralph Cohen University of California, Los Angeles. Ralph Cohen University of California, Los Angeles. Ralph Cohen. Lawrence Clark Powell W.M. Andrews Clark Memorial Library. Lawrence Clark Powell W.M. Andrews Clark Memorial Library. Lawrence Clark Powell. Corresponding Secretary, Mrs. Edna C. Davis W.M. Andrews Clark Memorial Library. Corresponding Secretary, Mrs. Edna C. Davis W.M. Andrews Clark Memorial Library. Edna C. Davis. The Society exists to make available inexpensive reprints, usually facsimile reproductions, of rare 17th and 18th century works. The editorial policy of the Society remains unchanged. As in the past, the editors welcome suggestions concerning publications. All income of the Society is devoted to defraying cost of publication and mailing. The Society. All correspondence concerning subscriptions in the United States and Canada should be addressed to the William Andrews Clark Memorial Library, 2205 West Adams Boulevard, Los Angeles 18, California. Correspondence concerning editorial matters may be addressed to any of the general editors. The membership fee is $3 a year for subscribers in the United States and Canada and $15 for subscribers in Great Britain and Europe. British and European subscribers should address B. H. Blackwell, Broad Street, Oxford, England. Publications for the 12th year, 1957 to 58. At least 6 items, most of them from the following list, will be reprinted. Henry Fielding, The Voyages of Mr. Job Vinegar, 1740. Introduction by Sam Sackett. William Herbert, 3rd Earl of Pembroke, Poems, 1660. Introduction by Gabby Onderweiser. An Historical View of the Political Writers of Great Britain, 1740. Introduction by Robert L. Haig. Francis Hutcheson, Essays on Laughter, 1729. Samuel Johnson, Notes to Shakespeare, Volume 3, Tragedies. Edited by Arthur Sherbo. Richard Savage, An Author to be Let, 1732. Introduction by James Sutherland. Elkanah Settle, The Notorious Impostor, 1692. Introduction by Spiro Peterson. 17th Century Tales of the Supernatural. Selected, with an introduction by Isabel M. Westcott. Publications for the first 11 years, with the exception of numbers 1 to 6, which are out of print, are available at the rate of $3 a year. Prices for individual numbers may be obtained by writing to the Society. The Augustine Reprint Society. William Andrews Clark Memorial Library. 2205 West Adams Boulevard, Los Angeles 18, California. The Regents of the University of California. Publications of the Augustine Reprint Society. First year, 1946 to 1947. Numbers 1 to 6 out of print. Second year, 1947 to 1948. John Gay's The Present State of Wit, 1711, and a section on wit from the English Theophrastus, 1702. Rapins de Carmine Pastorale, translated by Creech, 1684. T. Hammers, Some Remarks on the Tragedy of Hamlet, 1736. Corbin Morris Essay Towards Fixing the True Standards of Wit, etc., 1744. Thomas Purney's Discourse on the Pastoral, 1717. Essays on the Stage, selected, with an introduction by Joseph Wood Crutch. Third year, 1948 to 1949. Sir John Falstaff, Sued, The Theatre, 1720. Edward Moore's The Gamester, 1753. 15. John Oldmixon's Reflections on Dr. Swift's Letter to Harley, 1712, and Arthur Mainwaring's The British Academy, 1712. Neville Payne's Fatal Jealousy, 1673. Nicholas Rowe's Some Account of the Life of Mr. William Shakespeare, 1709. Of Genius, in the Occasional Paper, Volume 3, No. 10, 1719, and Aaron Hill's Preface to the Creation, 1720. Fourth year, 1949 to 1950. Susanna Centlever's The Bussy Body, 1709. Louis Theobald's Preface to the Works of Shakespeare, 1734. 21. Critical Remarks on Sir Charles Grandison, Clarissa, and Pamela, 1754. Samuel Johnson's The Vanity of Human Wishes, 1749, and Two Rambler Papers, 1750. John Dryden's His Majesty's Declaration Defended, 1681. 24. Pierre Nicole's An Essay on True and Apparent Beauty, in which from settled principles is rendered the grounds for choosing and rejecting epigrams, translated by J. V. Cunningham. Fifth year, 1950 to 1951. Thomas Baker's The Fine Lady's Airs, 1709. Charles Macklin's The Man of the World, 1792. 27. Out of print. John Evelyn's An Apology for the Royal Party, 1659, and a Panegyric to Charles II, 1661. Daniel Defoe's A Vindication of the Press, 1718. Essays on Taste from John Gilbert Cooper's Letters Concerning Taste, 3rd edition, 1757, and John Armstrong's Miscellanies, 1770. Sixth year. Thomas Gray, Elegy in a Country Churchyard, 1751, and the Eton College Manuscript. Prefaces to Fiction, Georges de Scudéry's Preface to Ibrahim, 1674, etc. Henry Galley's A Critical Essay on Characteristic Writings, 1725. 34. Thomas Tyer's A Biographical Sketch of Dr. Samuel Johnson, 1785. James Boswell, Andrew Erskine, and George Dempster. Critical Strictures on the New Tragedy of Elvira, written by Mr. David Mallock, 1763. 36. Joseph Harris's The City Bride, 1696. Seventh year, 1952 to 1953. 37. Thomas Morrison's A Pindaric Ode on Painting, 1767. 38. John Phillips' A Satire Against Hypocrites, 1655. 39. Thomas Warton's A History of English Poetry. 40. Edward Bish's The Art of English Poetry, 1708. 41. Bernard Mandeville's A Letter to Dion, 1732. 42. Prefaces to 4 17th-century romances. 8th year, 1953 to 1954. 43. John Bailey's An Essay on the Sublime, 1747. 44. Matthias Casimir Sarbierski's The Odes of Casimir, translated by G. Hills, 1646. 45. John Robert Scott's Dissertation on the Progress of the Fine Arts. 46. Selections from 17th-century songbooks. 47. Contemporaries of the Tatler and Spectator. 48. Samuel Richardson's Introduction to Pamela. 9th year, 1954 to 1955. 49. 2 St. Cecilia's Day Sermons, 1696 to 1697. 50. Hervey Aston's A Sermon Before the Sons of the Clergy, 1745. 51. Lewis Madewell's An Essay Upon the Necessity and Excellency of Education, 1705. 52. Pap Pitty Stampo's A Collection of Scotch Proverbs, 1663. 53. Urian Oakes' The Sovereign Efficacy of Divine Providence, 1682. 54. Mary Davis' Familiar Letters Betwixt a Gentleman and a Lady, 1725. 10th year, 1955 to 1956. 55. Samuel Say's An Essay on the Harmony, Variety, and Power of Numbers, 1745. 56. Theologia Ruris, Civ Schola and Scala Naturae, 1686. 57. Henry Fielding's Shamila, 1741. 58. 18th Century Book Illustrations. 59. Samuel Johnson's Notes to Shakespeare. Volume 1 Comedies Part 1. 60. Samuel Johnson's Notes to Shakespeare. Volume 1 Comedies Part 2. 11th year, 1956 to 1957. Elizabeth Elstobb's An Apology for the Study of Northern Antiquities, 1715. 62. 2 Funeral Sermons, 1635. 63. Parodies of Ballad Criticism, 1711 to 1787. 64. Prefaces to 3 18th century novels, 1708, 1751, 1797. 65. Samuel Johnson's Notes to Shakespeare. Volume 2 Histories Part 1. 66. Samuel Johnson's Notes to Shakespeare. Volume 2 Histories Part 2.